TSN Matthew on Twitter.com if you want to weigh in there. Matthew at TSN690.ca. 2 T's in Matthew as well. Niners game was tremendous. 17-0 down. I still thought it was a great move by the 49ers to defer. When you have a defense like that, let the other team start with the ball. That said, Matt Ryan and company come marching down the field and they score and everything's great. But it was interesting decision. It was definitely an interesting decision by Jim Harbaugh to defer at the beginning of the game. It worked out for him. He went into the halftime down 10 points. They got the ball. They scored right away. They got right back into the game. Always interested in those decisions. But how about that controversial I think it was the 3rd and 2, Harry Douglas, a catch or no catch. It was at midfield. It was in, Stefano, do you remember at what point in the game this happened?
It was about midway through the fourth quarter.
Midway through the fourth quarter, that's right. It was 3rd and 2, very pivotal game, or rather play, for the Falcons. I believe they were up by 3 points at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And Harry Douglas, wide receiver for the Falcons, makes a diving catch. Replays show that the ball is, within his, it's tucked in, but it hits, it literally bounces off the turf, but in his arms. So it was kind of sketchy to call it a catch on the field. You thought maybe it would be reversed because when he rolled over, he was still kind of juggling it a little bit as well. And I've never seen a coach go nuts like that on the sidelines like Jim Harbaugh did. And then remember, they call it a first down, so his team has to regroup and compete right away after that. So that was a huge play. Harbaugh just livid, throwing the headset down, almost kneeling down on the ground, looking up at the monitor. I mean, you don't expect that from a coach in a playoff game, in an NFC championship game where you got to be composed. You got to keep your players, thinking one way, because that was a great excuse for the players to just follow the coach's lead and sulk. So they're very lucky that they got out of there with the win. Did you think it was a catch?
It was not enough evidence to overturn it. Then I felt if you called it incomplete, it would have to remain incomplete. If you called it a catch, you'd have to keep it a catch. The other thing interesting though about that play is Harry Douglas sort of fell, so he couldn't really run after the catch. Had he been able to keep his balance, that would have been a touchdown. Yes. He was long gone if he was standing up. And
remember, the Falcons didn't score in the second half at all. So I mean, that was a big play, and kudos to the Niners defense for bending a little bit in the first half and certainly not breaking in the second half. But what a running game they have. I mean, it doesn't matter who's running the ball, Gore, James, or Kaepernick. Kaepernick didn't even have to run the ball all that much today. That's what's scary about the 49ers is when you get to the Super Bowl, that's a different game. There could be a different game plan like it was 2 weeks ago when Kaepernick ran for 180 yards. And the other thing, too, about the 49ers, and people want to point to that blowout win by the Seahawks where they won by 50 points. And, it shouldn't be all about one player, but the defense of the 49ers is really predicated on that defensive line being able to be balanced. So when you have Aldon Smith, sack leader on one side, you need to have the rest of that line putting pressure as well. Otherwise, he's just going to get double-teamed. And it's really a domino effect, right? You don't have any pressure on the quarterback, and so there's more pressure on the secondary, the linebackers of the Niners. But the one guy who was missing in that blowout against the Seahawks was Justin Smith, number 94, a longtime veteran with the 49ers. He's been back the last couple of weeks. He's played very, very well, and he'll be there for the Super Bowl. So I don't even want to think that was the same team. I think that the 49ers are on a roll here. I actually give them the edge in that game against the Ravens. Stefano, early lines for the Super Bowl. What do you see?
We have the 49ers once again favored at 4.5 points.
Okay, 4.5 points. It is in the NFC. I mean, obviously Baltimore's a little closer to New Orleans than San Francisco is, so you may have more Ravens fans there. But that said, Niners are a traditional franchise. You may have pockets of Niners fans all over, and they did used to play in the same division as New Orleans. Hard to tell who really has the advantage there with the crowd.
Right, and you wonder how many people also... it is New Orleans, so obviously if it was Atlanta, probably a lot of Atlanta fans making the trip up, or a lot of Saints fans booing them, but the fact that it's San Francisco and Baltimore, I would expect a very neutral crowd, maybe leaning more towards the Ravens, given that people will probably want to see Ray Lewis go out on top.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's interesting, too, that you didn't really hear a lot about Tony Gonzalez. He's going to be hanging it up, supposedly, right? So how come there wasn't a big hoopla about a guy like Tony Gonzalez, who's never been in trouble with the law, who's been arguably more of a model citizen, shall we say, and a real, guy to look up to obviously early in his career, Ray Lewis had a little brush with the law. A little something called a murder trial. That kind of hangs over you a little bit for a while. But in any event, he obviously merits some adulation and congratulations for a great career, and it will be a great Super Bowl. And I'm still thinking the Niners are going to win this thing. It's going to be a good one. It's game points here on TSN 690. Get the name of the show right now. Good Lord. Other side of the break. We'll take a break from the hockey and football just for a segment. I promise. Don't go away. We're going to chat with Lyra Pappin from TennisConnected.com. She's been on the program before. She's based in Toronto. And we're going to talk some Australian Open with her. That's next.